People whose NDAs have expired, what secret can you finally reveal? I worked for Equifax about 20 years ago. We were doing things with your data we weren't supposed to do. I know this is going to come as a great shock to a lot of people. I worked for a company that did screen printing and engraving, and one of their biggest clients was the US military. They bought everything from China. They had a person who would cut out the Made in China tags and replace them with Made in USA tags. Please post this question again in 18 months. I used to work for Supercell. If you are ever with an elderly loved one and they get a Medicare call, hang up right away. I worked at a company in downtown Chicago this last year that were absolute slimeballs. All these young agents scamming old people, promising something about this new upgrade to their insurance when really they were just taking them off their plan. A lot of these people have Alzheimer's disease, and we'd get POs calling in saying that we took their mother/father/aunt off a plan and now they can't get back on their plan for an entire year. I finally quit because it was so horrific what we had to do to our elders to get a paycheck. I personally tried to do everything I could to not be slimy, but at the end of the day the whole job was asterisk. I took a man off his plan and was going to have him start a new one the following month. Didn't have his medication list on him, so told me he would email it to me. He finally emails me a list of at least 20 medications. One of his medications that was covered for like $20 on his plan would literally go up thousands of dollars on the plan I put him on. I called him back and spent 2 hours canceling what we had signed him up on. I still feel horrible to this day. Imagine if he forgot to send me that list of medication. Listen to me, as a past Medicare advisor, do not let your parents/grandparents take these calls. Medicare Advantage plans are asterisk and Medicare advisors are 20-some-year-old kids who will do anything to get them taken off their plan. Even if you walk away with nothing on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, you still get money for doing the show. I worked for a company that audited medical bills and looked for stuff that wasn't charged. If you were not billed for something, they would try to collect on it and get a share of that. If you were billed for something and should not have been, well, sucks to be you. Moving on, no refunds. When I worked for StateIt, we weren't supposed to provide details of what hardware was being used or operating systems. In the 90s, I took on an old server, souped it up, and Linux on it to run our networks. This was pretty radical at the time because everyone else was using something proprietary like Netware, and I was able to deliver services for free. ML and Samba, they were paying out the nose for. The NDA wasn't about security. It was about keeping how much money they were wasting under wraps. Never open a document with DocuSign on your phone. We took every piece of data we could get our hands on. Marketing companies will hire junior people, give them amazing titles, and then charge the client outstanding fees per position, and pay those people junior pay, pocketing everything as profit. The time they charge on estimates is double what it actually takes. When a pharmacy's stock of medication expires, they can't just throw it away. Say hire pharmaceutical waste disposal companies to take it away and dispose of it properly. The pharmacy I worked for bought expired medication and supplies under the table from one of these disposal companies and resold them at full price. Edit, naming and shaming would be complicated because the business operated under a constantly changing chain of mail order pharmacies. When insurance companies would get enough complaints about one, they would deny coverage, at which point patients would be shuffled to another pharmacy in the chain, while the impacted pharmacy quietly closed and reopened under a new name. Good news, they were busted and folded pretty quickly under the weight of having to operate like an honest pharmacy. Company in question is no more. The big financial houses in New York City knew about the impending crash at least 6 months before it started in 2007. I was at an investment conference when I heard the heavy hitters discussing it before going on stage. I'll never forget the sentence. What do we do? Go out there and tell them we are all asterisk. They proceeded to go out there and peddle their everything is great, asterisk asterisk asterisk. I had never heard the word tranche before that day. Part of Amazon's associate training is literally how to lie when asked certain questions, and there was a social part of the contract that discouraged speaking poorly about Amazon with friends and on social media. I was working at a hospital as an intern. There was a woman who had a brain tumor a while ago. She got in for a checkup, 6 months pregnant and having depression. The doctor thought he found a new tumor, so she had another brain operation. But there was no tumor and they cut her head open for nothing. And after she woke up they didn't tell her this, instead acted like they removed it successfully. Basically all donations go to operating costs. Not quite an NDA, but a contract of non-competition, and we had to sign we wouldn't discuss the recipes with other restaurants. That being said, mayonnaise. So much goddamn mayonnaise. Even in other kitchens I've worked with, the amount of mayonnaise is unholy. All of the success the business I worked for had actually came from books taken out of the house of a deceased dementia patient that the owner cared for in the 90s. The owner just executed the plan and the books are still on property in a safe hidden in a wall behind the owner's husband's gun safe in the building, only accessible by the janitors and family. Also, the delivery guy is next in line for the business, not the daughters. Corporate cannabis is a greenwashing Walmart modeled business that pays awful and treats its employees like a never-ending replaceable resource. The turnover rate in the marijuana industry is astronomical. I did data entry for a lifestyle seminar company. Point names, email, home addresses, credit card numbers all being handed by underpaid, over-caffeinated college students who do the math. I worked in the auto industry for a respected and highly ranked luxury brand. As a manager we learned, from corporate, to teach the employees how to solicit a positive review. Or, more importantly, how to dissuade a negative review. We were using tactics that are beyond immoral and borderline illegal. A personal favorite was having to meet with a disgruntled customer, personally accept all the blame for whatever shortcoming, real or imagined, and tell them that the negative review will only affect the low-level employee that was in their corner the whole time. Then offer them some freebies and excuse myself so the other employee could apologize. 99% of the time the customer would take the employee's side and leave them a positive review. Occasionally they called corporate to complain about me, which did absolutely nothing. They wanted those negative phone calls as long as the actual online/mailed review was positive. Additionally, we would call people in for a free oil change, tire rotation, free floor mats, etc. and replace parts that were suspected in auto acceleration faults. They were trying to fix as many cars as possible to avoid a recall and bad publicity. In that case it still became a big news story. The SUVs with a known defective engine that broke just outside warranty did not become a news story. Seeing people brag about their amazing car based on ratings still makes me cringe. If you use the ratings and reviews of vehicles to select a brand of car, don't. Most of them are skewed and exploited by certain manufacturers. I was one of only a handful of people briefly considered for the male voice of Apple iPhone Siri. Chase Bank Mortgage Division uses outdated technology it bought for hundreds of millions of dollars from Quicken/Rocket Mortgage. It's a DOS-based system that Quicken created around 20 years ago. They also purposely handicap their salespeople who work off commissions. To avoid paying out larger commissions, if they are doing well, they will be pulled into receiving worse leads or put on special assignments that limit productivity. Worst case scenarios when a salesperson finds a way to break the system and make more money than Chase planned to pay out, they dig through the employees' chats or personal files to find reasons to terminate them. Chase also promotes internally to inflate their number of higher level positions held by minorities. Sounds great on the surface, but they do so artificially. Typically positions are filled by recruiting/HR. But whenever they want to bump the numbers they open a position that only inclusion candidates can apply for. Inclusion candidates are code for non-white or non-disabled. These positions are usually for low-level management that is planned to be cut in the near future. Oh. And they give blatant preferential treatment to employees with children to avoid lawsuits. They lost a big one a few years back over fathers getting equal maternity leave time. I knew about the Nintendo theme park at Universal Studios before it was announced. I also got to see a lot of the animatronics get created. My favorite was the piranha plant. Most marijuana growers, like some of the biggest companies in the world, mix their strains together regardless of policy/SOP, because people are stupid and upper management doesn't give a ******. Stems, seeds, they don't give a flying ****** about what makes it to the end of the line. They only care about money, not product. That's *****YOU** problem is the consumer. I work in finance. The computer does not tell me your rates. Your rates are determined by my mood that day and whether or not you complimented my shirt. The rabbits who don't get adopted are fed to the python. A new company took over a contract I worked on and sent everyone an email on Monday morning saying we had until Friday to accept a 20% pay cut or Friday would be our last day. I was a team lead. I had been part of the committee that hired every person on my team. They asked if I was staying. I told them that I was, but it was a big pay cut and I understood if they left and would be happy to write them a letter of recommendation. They all stayed. I was under an NDA that precluded me from telling them that there were about 5 of us out of the 50 that all kept our previous pay rate. They obviously assumed that I was taking a pay cut with them by staying. I'm pretty sure that NDA wouldn't hold up in court, but I didn't know that at the time. It felt sleazy as ***** to treat my guys that way. Reality shows are fake and staged with actors. Maybe obvious to most, but some still believe they are real. Auditioned for one a few years back. That the State Department of it has no idea what they are doing, and the state systems are so vulnerable that it's ridiculous. In the Capitol building, servers' old desktops were literally on the floor of the basement of the building on old paint cans because the basement regularly flooded. Electronic Arts is a horrible company that treats contracted workers like slaves and forces them into a cutthroat environment where yellow badges, contractors, are promised blue badges, full employees, based on quality of work. But blue badges run teams of yellow badges and take credit for the whole team's work. Worked as a cat tester on Sims 4, and I can't tell you the amount of times I was told not to submit a report, only to see the same issue I had found submitted with my team lead as the source. I made $8.50/HR and worked Monsat. Meanwhile team leads worked mom-free, made double, and were offered health benefits, retirement and PTO ***** system, and I'm glad I got fired over a **** sexual harassment claim. Girl who sat next to me filed the claim that I creeped her out despite the fact I never said more than good morning and see you tomorrow to her. Like I said, cutthroat environment. Last I heard she was made a team lead shortly after I left. Open bracket. I worked on The Walking Dead during college. I saw a ton of main and side characters die in my few seasons I worked on. They made us sign NDAs every day we worked on set. I did amateur porn scenes at 17, they knew my age. Big companies that have life insurance as a benefit of employment is a total racket. What they will do, for example, is tell you they have a $10,000 policy for you, should you pass. What they don't tell you is it's actually more, and if you were to die they just keep the extra X amount of dollars more than the $10,000 they told you about. This might be more well known nowadays than before, but I just try to get this info out as much as possible lol. I boxed up the first batch of Nokia Lumia smartphones. They were delivered in a blacked out van with a convoy. All the work our company did was supervised by armed guards. I was part of the crew that sent out letters to BP stockholders when the oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico happened. The pages were printed with a very interesting method that imprinted the text onto the page, but left the rest if the toner semi-bonded. So the page came out completely black off the printer, straight into an envelope with a special label that was printed out similarly. They were collected by a different blacked out van. I saw all the specs and diagrams 2010 for the 2014 release of the Land Rover Discover and Range Rover Sport, including detailed engine breakdowns. I still have the book somewhere, as well as like 5 or 6 4GB USB brackets that were packaged with them. I can't remember the name of the gallery. There was a fun set of prints that only 100 or so were sold. The one that sticks with me was a lady lying naked with what looked like barlock knees on her, topped with a raw egg. The print sets sold for like £10,000 a pop, and I had a set just chilling in a box. Something like 3,000 sets were printed, and only the best ones went out. Working for a printing company was pretty good sometimes. That video game that was terrible on release. It was terrible in beta and alpha, and we weren't allowed to warn you. Used to work for a spare parts manufacturing company, we were instructed to call the competitors from untraceable phones, faking as customers, to know their prices and specifications, and then obviously never follow up. The new Star Wars Destiny 2 player starter set would be out in November. But before that I was told to pre-order a Star Wars product, but was not allowed to be told exactly what I was ordering. I was hoping for something Swing or Imperial Assault related. Sigh. I'm a boring man. But I knew someone who signed an NDA for Hogwarts Legacy in 2017. Imagine not being able to say anything for 5 years about an open world Harry Potter game. FedEx. Your package may have an amount of urine on it if the drivers break the law and piss in a bottle. It happens more than you might think. There's this new gaming console coming out soon. It's gonna be amazing. It's called the PlayStation 4. Yeah, that one might have expired a few years ago. Reggie Phil's American English said the recent issues with contractors was not the culture at Nintendo when he worked there. He's a liar. I worked there while he was the head of NOAA. It absolutely was the culture there. I once signed an NDA for work in an early leads project. My favorite was that I couldn't tell people they planned to use dual flush toilets until after construction was finished. Recipes from 3 of San Diego's best restaurants. That Facebook is every bit as horrible as people think it is. What struck me most is the culture of silence there. You cannot talk openly about concerns of the effects of Facebook as an engineer without vague references of it showing up in performance reviews. Perhaps people have a more comic book style evil corporation in mind, but in Facebook coercion happens with performance reviews, strict metrics chasing, and not talking about the broader implications of those metrics. Take for example chasing the average session length metric, i.e. how long you're likely to stay on Facebook at any given time. Seems innocuous at first, until you realize this is where radicalization and spread of misinformation happens. Because as it happens, what keeps people's attentions the most effectively is sensational posts and polarizing posts targeting people's outrage. Not only does this give you a skewed view of the world, but it rewards the people spreading misinformation and rage bait. It's not that Facebook inherently plans to maximize people's outrage. It's just their metrics chasing makes them the most money by finding these patterns. Then like I said, it's awfully convenient to just stay silent and count the cash. It's the pinnacle, in my experience, of the banality of evil. I worked for a bagel shop. The co-manager told me to, instead of throwing away the tubs of cream cheese that were about to expire, replace the expiration stickers. Not a flood forecaster, but I did weather stuff for government and saw the potential for a massive flood that the flood forecasters were completely ignoring. My supervisor called them into a meeting. We showed them the data, and they were so clueless that they didn't even know which watershed would potentially be affected. I literally had to make a custom map that explained it in black and white. Once reality dawned on them, they got real quiet, left the room. Major flood forecast was issued something like 2 days later. Ended up costing taxpayers over $500 million, made worse because they weren't prepared. A flood review was later done. My help was never acknowledged. They blamed bad data and a lack of staff for not being prepared. Got a **** load of money and staff, and no talk to me again. Not an NDA. I'm never supposed to discuss it. Screw that. I worked for a publicly traded company in the late 2000s. They had one PC running Windows 95 and Access 97. That was a very important database. Without it, the company couldn't run its monthly and quarterly accounting procedures. The head of it didn't know how to upgrade the database. The company's long gone. There's another company I was let go from because they didn't like the way I stapled. I worked in it. They're long out of business. I work for much better companies now. Most iced coffee is just unsold drip coffee refrigerated. What really happened at Minute in 2007 regarding 6 temporarily lost nuclear weapons? But that's the only area my NDA has lapsed. Former 2W2 who worked for 5th Bomb Wing and 91st Space Wing. I was not in the BW at the time as I was in the W78 program. But basically the report is out now, and thus my NDA lapses there. I recall hearing the news that followed. The unbelievable chain of custody failures could have been stopped at several different points. But many of the points, laziness took over. There is a certain method for visually determining what you have loaded in the pylon. And person after person basically said, nah, we are good. The following crews missed it. AGM maintenance crew, breakout crew, transport crew, munitions control, my former post, pilot, navigator and flight officers. This was a monumental fuck up and down the board. Literally lost our certification status. The entire wing, all of us. Barksdale 2W2s had to fly in immediately and literally do our jobs for us for quite some time. Now what happened afterwards is still protected, but this was a very bad moment that in other circumstances could have been accepted as an act of war. Edit. Okay, it was pointed out about the jargon. Very simple. 6 nuclear weapons we temporarily lost and unsecured. When you have a live warhead, you must secure it in specific ways. Also, to determine if you have a live warhead, you look in specific areas. The specifics are still a matter of classification, hence why I'm not detailing those. Basically, all the crews, from the people who open up vaults, to ground transport, to flight crews, didn't check to see if it was live or training. After it was discovered, the entire squadron lost certification status, meaning we weren't even allowed to work on our own weapons. I initially misunderstood this for DNRs, do not resuscitate, for anyone who might not know, and I had some concerns. Someone on the TV show I worked on tried to poison the lead actress. They got fired, but the police were never involved, though they probably should have been. Cybersecurity at many small to mid-size credit unions and banks is usually close to non-existent. Shocker, I know. Few examples I saw in one place. Asterisk, the map drive each employee got had no security. You could just go into any other employees and do what you wanted. Asterisk, users group was added to administrators on every laptop/desktop. This did not extend into the server network, but any employee could do anything on any other desktop/laptop. They also could install anything they wanted in the days of ransomware. Asterisk, there was no network segmentation at the branches. So the bank manager who kept installing malware was on the same network as the teller behind the counter. Asterisk, backups were not ever tested until needed. When they were needed they found out they didn't work. Asterisk, Windows Update was broken on about 5-10% of machines for years. Could go on, but that was some of the more major ones I ran into. I fixed basically all of those at that place, but I still work in the industry at another level/company and can tell this problem is widespread. There is an episode of Finding Bigfoot where they are in Mayaca City, Florida. There were cows having sex behind them, and the editors cut it out. I used to work in an intelligence agency that we will not mention due to obvious reasons. Back some 15 years ago, Said intel agency was collecting email data from the enemies. We had most of the domains tapped, but one was particularly hard to crack, and it was gaining more and more popularity. Don't want to mention which. This is still gray area. So, instead of going through the long route of hacking it, we sent a guy to work at the domain company. He got a job, climbed a few ranks, until he had access to the servers, and Bob's your uncle. One of the most prestigious consulting companies, starting with M, was going for more diversity in hiring when I was there. The idea was to reject all CVs that came from males. Just like that, without reading. They would also have a filter in their hiring software to only pass on female names included in their filter. Also, in certain places they would only read CVs coming from people with clearly black names, rejecting everything else. They would hold meetings discussing whether a CV comes from a black person if there was no picture included. Everything just to avoid calling the wrong candidate. If anyone's wondering, these practices are highly illegal. This was in 2017. Then I left, but I doubt they changed their ways. iPhone release dates aren't nearly as salacious as Apple and carriers would have you believe. Fun fact, at my company all the new features of phones aren't shown to most employees until day of, so even if they were cool, they are not. We can't hype asterisk. BioWare was working on a Star Wars based MMO to compete with World of Warcraft. 99% of the time, when you go to a car dealership's website and click the box to chat with a representative, you're actually talking to a person in an office nowhere near the dealership. Almost everything you ask already has a canned response for it. Where I worked, our entire job was to get your contact information to send to the dealership so they could contact you on their own time. Even if you asked a simple question like what's the mileage on this truck, we were to say something like I'm having trouble getting that information. Let me get your phone number and email address and I'll have a salesperson get back to you with the information. I got fired from there because I refused to engage with askewness. If someone asked a question and I knew or could find the answer, I'd just tell them. Sometimes people just want to browse and don't want to be hounded by a salesperson to buy an overpriced Pose car. I'd say the company I worked for, but last I checked the boss I had there used Reddit. Western Africa was where all the major oil companies were looking to drill when fracking got priced out of the market. Because of the whole Pangaea thing and that having been closer to the Permian Basin once upon a time. Also, if you specify a ton of security measures for companies handling your data, you should surprise audit them. Make sure that the network is isolated the way you think it is, the passwords aren't written on post-its in the terminals, the cameras work, physical security isn't compromised. You know that you're getting what you paid for. I used to work for State Farm that used an operating system for their claims process that was originally built for GEICO back in the 90s, but that GEICO felt was so bad that they ended up selling it to them. It looked like Linux and took forever to upload anything to it. Well, F the farmers we used to call it. They were trying like crazy to make a new internally built operating system because it was just so terrible. I worked for Lone Star in NZ years ago. We use water injected chicken. The Dixie chicken is simmered into liters of cream. Not an NDA, but when you buy cosmetics and personal care items, lotions, makeup, perfumes, etc. When they have call out ingredients, it only has to be in the formula and greater than 0.1%. Made with coconut oil. Stuff like that. It's for sales. A guy might put an offer in on a property with the intention of kicking everyone out and knocking it down to build something that was going to be much better and find a spot for the tenants to be during the construction. He didn't. Kathmandu boasts about its ethical treatment of its workers in C. However, in the country the business was founded, NZ, its essential workers are paid minimum wage, get no overtime, and have no career pathways. This is probably not going to surprise anyone, but I have worked and still do work in advertising. I'm still limited to how much I can reveal, and I will not be naming any names. Around early 2010s, we were developing technology focusing on hyperlocalization. Already had access to a plethora of devices because we had personally developed mobile apps for some very big and household name companies. And we also had our SDK in millions of devices via other apps. We tested out our tech in Vegas on the Strip. We wanted to see if we can easily communicate with the devices without raising any alarms for the user or the app developer, assuming we did not want to share the tech with them. We were able to do so with ease as we tested by sending them push notifications. As you can tell, none of this involved permissions from anyone involved. Our goal was to localize customer to the portion of the aisle that they were in. So if they're in aisle 7 of Ralph's, we know that the middle of the aisle is selling cereal, so we will immediately send a notification on some cereal sale. We find this very creepy right now, because the average customer has become wary of being monitored. But of course, to us, or to any advertiser, the user is just a number. Nobody is ever interested in finding your deep dark secrets. Before they could go much further with this tech, I left the company for a better opportunity. I don't know what they're doing now, but they are still in business and have expanded